Well, here we are. The fourth installment of this somewhat dead series. It's like SpongeBob. You've just gotta milk it until there's nothing left. Wait, no, that's not right. Whatever. I'll come up with a good analogy at some point. Speaking of analogies, school's like work. You get up, go to a place you don't want to, complete a bunch of chore-like activities, then go home super tired. But do you want to know what the worst part of all of it is? You have to go out of your way to get dressed in the morning. It's stupid. That's why I'm in my birthday suit right now. But if school's the equivalent of work, then what's the equivalent of work? Well, the answer is simple. Work is like a chore. I won't explain that because it's self-explanatory, but this completes my theory. School is a chore. Wait a minute. Everybody already knows that. And I just used the transitive property of equality. I just did a chore. Come on! Whatever. I'll get over it at some point. But right before I get started, let me just remind you to subscribe if you'd like to stay up to date with all of the dumb stuff that I do. Or I don't know. To kick things off, I'll tell you guys this. When I was in the 6th grade, my mom encouraged me to join some sort of extracurricular activity, and she really seemed to like the idea of me joining my middle school's student council. And unsurprisingly, I listened to her and ended up having to stay after school in the library once a week with a bunch of other kids. However, although I was hesitant about joining Stuco, it was actually pretty cool, because guess who ended up getting voted the president? Not me. That position ended up going to a girl in the 8th grade. Want to know why? Too bad. To be the student council president, there were 2 requirements. You had to be in the 8th grade, and you had to have been in the student council at least once before. I obviously didn't come anywhere close to meeting either of these requirements, but there was something that was almost as good. There were no requirements for being the student council vice president, and after a not very long and hard-fought election, guess who got the position? That's right, it was actually me. Well, I never actually told anybody this, but I kind of rigged the election. Well, okay, not really. But a good amount of the kids in Stuco with me were kids I knew and were friendly with. So I went around to all of them and asked them to give me their vote. So I guess it wasn't as much rigging the election as it was me knowing other kids. There weren't too many perks to being the vice president, but of the few that I had, I would have to say that my favorite one was how I never really had to do all that much. And sure, that may not sound like it could be true because of how important the role of vice president is, but let me just tell you that each student council meeting went like this. First, everyone would gather together in the library while the president would make announcements and tell everybody what their task was for the meeting. Then everyone would do their jobs for the rest of the session. And while that may not sound like it gives me any perks, not only did I get to stand directly next to the president while she did the announcements, but instead of doing a task, I mainly just walked around and made sure everyone else was doing theirs. It was pretty great. I was like a supervisor. But then once the year was over, I completely ditched the council for the rest of my middle school career. What fun! While I'm on the topic of after-school clubs and activities, I seem to have a vague memory of an after-school program that I participated in at a very young age. And by that, I mean I was literally in kindergarten at the time. Although I don't exactly remember how often it took place, I do remember a few things, like how it took place in the school's cafeteria, and how my twin brother and I would always look forward to going so we could play games and have fun with the other kids. It was awesome! One thing that I even remember very vividly was that one of the adults who helped with the program was an older man who was somewhat strict. However, one day, he had all the kids sit and listen to him while he spoke. He was going over the rules, which wasn't typically a fun thing to hear, but when he got to a specific rule, things took a turn. One of the things he said not to do was stick pieces of paper in your mouth. But then, he proceeded to stick a little wad of paper in his mouth, immediately breaking his own rule. I didn't understand why he did that until what came after. The man then started pulling tons of colored rags out of his mouth, one after another, until there was a large pile of colored rags on the floor. It looked like a clown had just lost his lunch, and it was awesome. All of the kids were completely flabbergasted at the magic trick he just did. Everyone cheered for him, and to this day, I still have no idea how he did it. Mainly because I never cared to look it up. I'll probably do it someday. Another thing that happened to me while I was in kindergarten was from a boy in the 1st grade who didn't like me all that much. We didn't get along, which is weird because his classroom was directly across from mine. Anyway, One day on the bus, I overheard him frustratedly say the two words, "Oh, barnacles." That was it. Just those two words, and nothing else. I still have no idea how this got to me, but I kid you not when I say that I burst out laughing right then and there. I asked the kid to say it again, which he did, and I laughed again. This happened multiple times, and the only response I have to it is that I was a weird little kid. You know, I still remember looking from my classroom into his, and being really excited to be in it the next year because I had no idea what it looked like on the inside, and I thought being in there would make me feel like a big kid. Yeah, when I was in kindergarten, I thought the first graders were the big kids, which is kind of stupid considering there were also second, third, fourth, and fifth graders in the school. In fact, I even vividly remember sitting on the grass with almost every other grade on field day while we watched a game of Tug of War, which was a game that only the fifth graders could participate in. But I digress. You know what? I'm going to do this. 3 for 3. I'm going to throw in a third elementary school story. When I was in the third grade, if a kid did something bad, they would have to run laps around the playground before they could play at recess. Oh, and it wasn't something you could bail on halfway through either. The teachers would sit on a bench and watch you. But one day, I accidentally gave myself a get-out-of-jail-free card. I was more of a teacher's pet in elementary school, so I wouldn't often do something that would get me in trouble. But one day, I was running laps around the playground for something I can't remember, and accidentally fell down and scraped my knee on the concrete. Instead of being a big boy and just sucking it up, I decided to take a giant shortcut halfway through the lap and walk over to my teachers. I've always been good at persuasion, so I saw this as an opportunity to get the rest of the laps taken off my sentence. I went over to them, and I explained what had happened, which unsurprisingly made them feel bad for me. But then I decided to throw in an extra sentence to seal the deal. "Well, I guess I'm going to go back to running laps now," I said in a melancholy tone. But then, just as I had planned, one of them told me, "Wait, it's fine. You don't have to run laps anymore." And just like that, I was free to play to my heart's content. If either of my third grade teachers are watching this right now, let me just set things straight by saying this. I'm not at all sorry. I planned the entire thing out perfectly. Thanks for letting me play, though. Alright, let me be done with telling stories now. This is supposed to be my thoughts on school, not gather around the fire for Uncle Stikdude's story time. You know, now that I think about it, one of the things on the playground when I was in 2nd to 4th grade was something called a spin-a-me. I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically, a bunch of kids would get on and hold tight while one kid would stay off and spin it around and around, eventually letting go so the forces could do their thing. Just talking about it makes me dizzy. It was, without a doubt, the most dangerous thing in our playground, and all of the kids loved it. In fact, most of the time, there would be a line of kids waiting to get on because I guess they just couldn't resist wanting to puke. And I'm just gonna say it, I was one of those kids. And the entire thing was just one big accident waiting to happen, and it was even closed off for a bit every now and then. But even with that, it was awesome. However, something that was the direct opposite of awesome was how in middle school, sometimes the teachers would play music through large speakers while all of the kids ate lunch. Unfortunately, one of those songs was Sweet Caroline. Oh my God. On the literal first 2 words of the chorus, almost every kid in the cafeteria would shout at the top of their lungs and then slam on the tables. Hard. Ha! It was nice knowing you, eardrums. Not only did it disrupt my eating, but all of the kids shouting at the same time was pretty much a surefire way to get me to cover my ears. Almost every time it happened, I would ask the kids around me the same thing. Why does everybody do that? It sucked. Anyway, I'm going to talk about one last thing, because by this point in the video, I've said a lot of words and me brain no think good. I kind of think that PE should be optional. I mean, I certainly don't like it, and I'd get the same amount of exercise walking halfway across the school to get to a class, then walking back to get to another. At least that's not just meaningless exercise like running laps or breathing. That doesn't mean I can stop, though. Wow, look, I'm finally done with this. I'm just kidding. I really enjoyed rambling on to you guys about stuff from my past. Actually, I did UIL prose in 6th grade. Just look it up if you don't know what that is. But the script I was given was actually about why PE should be optional, so I guess that my 7th grade English teacher kind of predicted the future. Anyway, as usual, here's all my social media stuff, and I hope after watching this video, you could consider subscribing if you're not already, or at least liking the video. Or don't. I can't do it for you. As long as you enjoyed, that's fine. What I can do, though, is tell you to brush your teeth. Trust me, morning breath sucks. Okay, I'm gonna go off script by saying this, but, you'll wake up, and then you smell it. You just breathe into your hand, and then sniff it, and then you just feel like passing out and going back to sleep. Anyone ever... I've never had that problem, but I feel like someone out there has. Whatever, I'm rambling at this point. Bye.